Some students find paper 2, in other words, a literature paper, very daunting because there are so many options to choose from, and there are so many instructions to read when you start, that it is really, really important that before you embark on any exam, that you must know exactly what you are in for so that you can be absolutely certain that you're doing the right thing. Now let's look at how this paper is set out. There is a section A, there is a section B, and section C. Now you have to answer questions from every single section. No options there. Starting with section A, which is the poetry section. And within the poetry section, you have prescribed poetry, question 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's usually questions 1 to 4. And then question 5, which is unseen poetry. Now, you have to answer 2 questions on prescribed poetry. In other words, from the list of 10 poems that got prescribed to you and that you all had to study in detail, you are given 4. You have 4 questions, and you only have to answer 2. One of these questions will be a poetry essay, but you don't have to choose that option, although it's not a bad choice, but I'm just saying that don't think that it's a different aspect. One is a poetry essay, but you can choose any 2 of the prescribed poems because you have to do 2 prescribed poems. Only 2. Don't go and do all 4, because what are the markers going to do? They are going to mark the first 2. They're not going to look at the other 2, and a line will be drawn through it. Nobody's going to look at it. Nobody's going to say, I'm going to look at the best 2. Forget that option. It's not going to happen. The first 2 will be marked. So 2 prescribed poems. And then 1 poetry question on the unseen poem. It'll usually have a South African theme, the unseen poem, and the questions are not as intense as the prescribed poetry, but it is a question that you have to do. It is compulsory. There are no options. 2 prescribed, 1 unseen. 3 poems, that's it, on section A. Right. Section B is the novel, which will give you the option of an essay or a contextual question. So now, it means that you're going to have to choose whether you're going to write the essay or the contextual. And it will only be, you will only answer the question here on the novel that you have studied. There might be an option of 3 or 4 novels out of which you chose to study Pride and Prejudice, for instance. Now you've chosen that one. So when you go to section B, there will be questions on Life of Pi, there will be questions on whatever it is, Animal Farm, The Great Gatsby, whatever the other novels are, there will be questions on that, essay questions and contextual questions. You're not going to waste your time by even looking at those questions. Don't even think about it. Go straight to the one that you've studied, Pride and Prejudice, for instance, and focus on that. And there already you will find an option of either contextual or essay. You're going to have to choose between those because you can only do 1 question on the novel. There's also section C, which is drama, where you have exactly the same scenario. There are, say, 3 dramas. You have chosen to study The Crucible. You opted to choose that one, and you left out Hamlet and you left out Othello. You chose The Crucible because that was an option. You chose one, which is fine. The rest, please, they are irrelevant. Don't even go there. The Crucible. Now look at that. There's a question, an essay question, and a contextual question. So you have the choice to do one of those. But you can only do one literary essay, and you can only do one contextual question, and they cannot be from the same section. You cannot do the novel essay and the contextual, or the drama contextual and the essay. No, one from section B and one from section C. So in other words, your next question will be one literary essay on either novel or drama, and one contextual on either, but it will be the other way around. Once again, I'm cautioning you, don't try to be clever, for instance, and think, perhaps they'll feel sorry for me, I'm going to do the essay and the contextual on the novel, and then I'm going to leave the drama out. Perhaps they'll have pity on my soul and they'll mark both. They will not mark both. You have to stick to the instructions. Very, very clear. Right? So, in summary, you'll have 3 poetry answers, like I said, and you'll have 1 novel, let's say contextual, and 1 drama. And if that is contextual, the other one will have to be an essay. Understand? Right. So please do not, as I've cautioned you before, do not refer to any questions about novels or dramas that you did not study, and take a chance. You're just going to confuse yourself, and you're going to throw all your marks down the drain, right? So what do you do now when you get this paper, which is so full of questions and so confusing? Don't let it confuse you. Listen to what I said in the previous slide, and you'll be fine. So you go to section A, and you skim over the 4 prescribed poems. You will invariably, sometimes know more about one or that, than about another, or you might prefer one to another, and so on. But be very careful. Your favorite poem might not be the one with the simplest of questions. There might be a poem that you didn't like particularly, but you did study it, but the questions are much more, in your mind, answerable. So skim those poems and decide for yourself which 2 of these, and you're going to have to do that very quickly, because you don't have time to ponder for half an hour which to choose. Skim them, just have a look at the questions, ask yourself, do I know this? Then choose 2 and tick them clearly, or highlight the question. Now you know 2 prescribed poems. Those are the ones I'm going to do. You know that the contextual is compulsory, so tick that one as well. Have to do it, right? The others you're not going to look at. Don't waste your time starting with one and then thinking, perhaps I'll do better with another. Don't do that. Decide and then do your best with what you've chosen. You don't have time to hover around and to dither and to wonder, what should I have done? So you choose 2 of the 4 given poems, and that's from 1 to 4. So you're choosing number 2 and number 4, let's say. And then you are choosing number 5 because you have to. And it's clearly been ticked. Then from sections B and C, once again, it's difficult. So but you don't want to use too much time wondering what to do or which to choose, because I have 4 questions to consider. Which of those will be better for you to choose? Which contextual and which essay, since you can only do one. from each section. So once again, skim through them very quickly. Don't take too much time and don't become too confused. Make the decision on the base of what you've seen in the skimming process and make your decision. Tick it, decide, making sure that you're doing one contextual, one essay from two different categories, okay? So from B and C, then skip the essay questions and the contextual questions that you have, again, from the novels and the drama. Please, guys, that you have studied. Don't go to the others. You will never finish if you try to pay attention to what the other questions are and think to yourself, oh, but those questions are simpler than... Not really. When these papers are set, they make very sure that the level of difficulty of the various essay questions is the same, and you need not go and explore that because you're wasting time, right? So if you've ticked off exactly what you've done, realize that these are the only questions that you are going to answer. So it's 1, 2, 3 from section A, 1 here, and then 1 here, 1, 2, 3. So it's 5 questions in total. These will be 10 each. It's out of 30, and this will be out of 25, and this will be out of 25. That gives you 50, 60, 70, 80 total. That is your paper 2. So 30 marks, section A, 25 marks, section B, 25 marks, section C, total marks, 80. Now, when you've done your selection, right, already, although it must happen quite quickly, but you must make sure that the selection was done correctly, that you have exactly as prescribed what you should do and which ones are ticked in, where you're going to go from here. Now you're going to start answering your questions. How about the length and the scope of these questions and answers? Now, the length and the scope of the contextual questions will be determined by the mark allocation of the question and the scope required in terms of instruction words, key question words, etc. As in the case with comprehension, you are required to answer concisely but fully. Keep in mind, though, while the question marks, the question words, the instruction words are pretty much the same as for the comprehension, the answers to the literature questions, say for 3, will be more comprehensive. It must have a little bit more body than your comprehension questions. Remember that they require your knowledge of the novel, and they really require an in-depth answer. Don't forget that. You have studied these texts, and there was a lot to study, and you now need to just take from whatever you've studied that you need for this specific question. So the scope for the contextuals, pretty much the same as for the comprehension, but just remember there's more body in the literature answers because there's so much that you can give. However, you must just stick to what you are asked, okay? Be very careful not to think that I am going to just do the contextuals on the novel quickly in 20 minutes and then I have more time for my essay. Remember that your contextuals and the essay count for exactly the same number of marks. It's 25, 25. Don't go and do that. If you answer the contextuals properly, it's going to take you a long time. It's going to take you just as long as it's going to take you to write the essay. So don't do that. It's 25 marks, 25 marks. The contextuals deserve your full attention, just as your essay will deserve your full attention. So don't go and mess up the one because you've spent too much time on the one because you think you are going to get more. You're not going to get more than 25 out of 25. Anyway, so the length then of the essays, the poetry essays, it depends whether you are grade 10, it's 150 to 200, 11, 200 to 250, 12, 250 to 300 words. And the length of the literary essays, once again for the grade 10s, it will be 300 to 350, for grade 11, 350 to 400, and then grade 12, 400 to 450 words. In other words, the same number of words allocated to an ordinary essay, same for grade 10, 11, 12. In the poetry essay, same thing. Then, how did you divide your time? You are going to get an indication in your instructions on your paper, but as I say, the nerves might have kicked in and you might have forgotten, or you don't concentrate well. Know these things beforehand. You must walk into the exam room knowing exactly what to do and exactly how long to take and exactly what is needed, so that you know that you don't make a dumb mistake, right? So section A, the 3 poems, should take you about 40 minutes to do, right? So that you're left with 2 sessions of 55 minutes, just under an hour each for the contextuals and the essay. As I said, try to stick to the time allocation. Do you understand? There's no point, for instance, spending, say, an hour and a half on the poetry because you want to do it so perfectly. You can do it as perfectly as you like. You're not going to get more than 30 marks for it. So don't steal time from another section. Respect each of these sections and deal with them separately, and preferably before the exam. Work through practice papers. There are so many of them available on the internet. Work through these papers. Time yourself. Have a clock next to you. Have a watch next to you or your cell phone and time yourself. Make sure that you can answer the poetry in 40 minutes, right? So, now another very important thing that people don't tend to even listen to, or they don't seem to hear it when it's read out to them in an exam location, is that please, every section, that means section A, the poetry, and then novel, drama, every section must start on a clean page, please. And that after every question, that means question 1 of your poetry section, question 2 of the poetry, question 5, that was the unseen. After each one of these questions, you must please rule off. Remember, these questions are going to be marked by different people. It's going to be handed to the next person. The one has done question 1. Now, who does question 5? Question 5. Somebody else is going to mark it. If these things are not properly ruled off, it just makes for confusion amongst the markers, and you want to be nice to the marker, please. After every question, not like 1.1 and then rule off, but after 1.4 or 1.5, rule off, then question 2, and then rule off, etc. And then every section on a different paper. You might think it's not important, but it is crucial because it makes such a difference in the sense of your presentation and how the marker is going to feel about your paper. If it's all mixed up and not clear, it just aggravates somebody who now needs to be nice to you. Do you understand? You need to look at those things. It's very, very important. So you have to rule off after questions. Now, once you've answered all the questions, there is a tick list on the last page of your instructions, which says, what did you answer? Did you do this? Did you do to this poem, poem, poem. It gives you a little summary again where you can just tick just to make sure that you've done the right thing. You can go and check that, or you can just check in your own mind, because you should know this off by heart. 2 prescribe, 1 unseen, 1 essay, 1 contextual from different genres. That's it. So you check that, please. Make sure. So go back to the tick list if you like, in the table of contents, and tick tick if you like. It's clear if you want to just reassure yourself. An important thing that you need to remember is that another thing that is extremely annoying to a marker is if a person writes the rough draft, say for instance, of the essay, and then the person doesn't indicate that it's rough. Right. So here it comes to me, I have to mark this question, and okay, here I merely start marking, and then after I've marked the whole question's answer, I see suddenly there's another, and it says final essay. So now I've marked the rough draft. So what do I have to do? I have to draw a line through the rough draft, and I have to go to the final draft and mark it again. So in other words, I have to double up my job, and I'm going to start lagging behind. It's just so confusing and annoying to a marker if a person does not clearly say what he's doing. So if you have a rough draft, what I normally suggest is, if this is, say, for instance, the rough draft, remember that a rough draft can be in any format. They're not finicky about whether you've written out the whole thing, whether you just have a diagram of sorts, like a spider diagram or anything, doesn't matter. But you have to draw a line through it. And what I normally suggest is to do, here is a neat line like that. You can use your ruler. If you don't have the ruler that day, do it. Nevertheless, please go and say rough, or indicate clearly at the top that it is rough, so that the marker doesn't go and mark something and gets annoyed because you did not indicate, right? Another thing that's very, very important that learners sometimes get wrong is that they number incorrectly. If you are answering questions on a certain poem, say London, right, and it is number 2, poetry, it's question 2. It's a prescribed poem and you're answering it. But you go and you number it question 3 because you were somewhat confused in the beginning and you thought perhaps I'll do. So now you write question 3 at the top, but your answers are not on question 3. You know, by right, you should get 0 for your answers, because your answers don't fit the questions of question 3. They fit the answers of question 2. So can you see that, strictly speaking, you should get 0? But please try and be very accurate as far as your numbering is concerned. It's very, very important. So according to the numbering system used in the paper, of course, not your own numbering. This is my first and my second and my third. No. On the numbering system, this is now question 5 that I'm attempting. So it's question 5, right? So please write and work neatly, make it legibly and clearly. Neatly just means that you must write neatly so that at least one can read it. It's legible, it's legibly, and not scratched out and ugly, like that, but neatly as you can. There's nothing wrong with drawing a line through something and rewriting it or redoing a question. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as you do it neatly and clearly, then it's fine. And you number it correctly again, it's fine. It will be marked, it'll be fine. And clearly, meaning that what you see in front of you must be clear. I'm going to give you an obvious example here. If you look at what you see in front of you, it's like a page, right? It is section A. You've started with poetry, and it's on a clean page. Then there's question 5, touched by an angel, Maya Angelou. It's question 5. Now the numbers are, the poetry will always be point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4. It'll be out of 2 marks, 2 marks, 3 marks, 3 marks, always. And then 10. So for you to work clearly means that please make sure that the section it's on a clean, section 8, it's a clean, although that could have been section B, whatever, but on a clean page, right? And then that you number it correctly according to the numbering system. That you please number in the middle of the line, please. 5.1, point 2, point 3, point 4. The reason being that if you number in the middle, there will automatically be an open space here, an open space here. Can you see what I'm saying? If there's an open space immediately. So it's very clear if it's in the middle, then you start your answer on the left-hand side. Now don't number in the middle and also now start writing in the middle. Go to the left-hand side and write from that side. But this is basically in terms of what it should look like to the marker. Clearly, neatly done, etc. As I say, feel free. If you feel that you want to change that 5.4, draw a line through it and write again under it 5.4, again, redo it. No problem. No problem. Nobody's going to mark it. You can even give it 2 lines if you like. And then you just number again 5.4, and which shows that you are going to do it again. And then after every question, as I said, rule off, and then you go on to your next question. You don't need to go to a new page, next question, and then you do the same, 2.1, 2.3, etc. Like that. Very neatly and legibly and clearly structured. And that's it for today.